Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Ocrolus Product Pulse. Today, we're excited to share our latest product release for mortgage lenders with our new integration with Fannie Mae Income Calculator for rental income. If you have any questions throughout the session, please put them in the Q&A module in Zoom, and we'll address them at the end. My name is Craig McKeon from the Ocrolus marketing team, and I'm joined today by Rebecca Seward, VP of Product at Ocrolus. So, diving right in, the Fannie Mae integration enables you to submit borrower income data directly from Ocrolus into Fannie Mae's income calculator, returning rep and warranty eligible income assessments for borrowers with our existing self-employed income calculations and now with rental income. These assessments are displayed in the Ocrolus dashboard, clearly labeled recommended, and are also pushed into Encompass with case file IDs and alerts. This delivers a fully automated GSE compliant income review that increases trust, it reduces manual work, and it mitigates repurchase risk in underwriting. I want to highlight a few key points that you'll see in action here with Becca in the demo. The first is input collection. So we proactively check that every required data point is present before submission to Fannie Mae. If something is missing from the documents, Ocrolus will flag it and guide you to complete the fields. This helps ensure the file is fully ready before it ever goes to Fannie Mae. We also feature a recommended income display. So in the income view, we show the calculated rental income with a recommended label. So underwriters know exactly which values align with Fannie Mae's guidelines. If anything needs attention, we surface alerts directly from Fannie Mae so you can address those issues before moving forward. Next is an income override warning. So if you manually override the calculated income from Fannie Mae, Ocrolus will clearly warn you that doing so may impact the rep and warranty eligibility for Fannie Mae. That way you can make informed decisions and understand the compliance implications before changing the numbers. There's also the ability to rerun income calculations. So if something changes in the file, like updated documents or corrected data, you can easily rerun the income calculation through Fannie Mae. Ocrolus will keep track of versions while maintaining the case file ID, so there's continuity and an audit trail. Finally, one of our favorites, the Encompass sync. So once everything is finalized, you can push the calculated income directly into Encompass as you would with our other income calculators. This makes it easy for you to maintain a clean audit trail and keep all of the relevant data flowing into your downstream processes without any rekeying. So those are just a few highlights. I know everyone wants to see it in action, so Becca, let's jump into the demo.
Sounds good. Thank you, Craig. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here and show everyone the dashboard experience view of this product. Now, as Craig mentioned, we do fully integrate ourselves into the Encompass loan origination system. So this dashboard screen that you are seeing today is accessible through Encompass Partner Connect, where lenders can access the dashboard experience through the additional services screen of Encompass. Once you review all of the income calculations, you have the ability to then import the value directly into the verification of employment record 1003 details in the Encompass screen. But what I'm showing you today is the summary screen of the dashboard experience for income. And so when you want to review rental income, you can drill down into Georgia's income for rental. Now, this is the Fannie Mae Income Calculator in action. We do show all of the relevant messages that were returned back from Fannie Mae in this View Details window here. Now, when we take extraction data from Schedule E as well as Schedule 1, we send all of those extraction details to Fannie Mae and we receive an income evaluation and observations, eligibility, data quality issues in return. In the rare instance where we didn't have enough extraction values to actually successfully calculate an income value, we would receive that risk and eligibility message as well. So in this view detail screen, you can see all of the various messages that were provided back from Fannie Mae for this income assessment. Now we can see all of those categorized by what type of income evaluation message this was. So we can see risk and eligibility messages highlighted very clearly in red. We can see verification slash conditions messages, as well as any observation messages. These messages should look very familiar to anybody who leverages the online income calculator by Fannie Mae or desktop underwriter. So it's broken down by all of the different messages types. Now, to successfully run an income calculation, we don't just require the extraction field values from Schedule E and Schedule 1. Fannie Mae did require Ocrolus to present a couple of input fields that are necessary for processors, underwriters, or humans, basically, to input values for based on this particular loan program. So if I click on View Input Fields, you'll see that this updated screen appears. Now, this is just trying to collect additional information about this particular borrower and how they treat rental income or rental properties. We can see here that there are drop downs for a few field values, many of which we are retrieving automatically directly from Encompass. So we won't require customers to manually input every single one of these fields. We will try to use references when we can to loan file data that we have access to. So for example, in the subject property details dropdown, we would recognize whether or not the rental property we are running income for or any of the rental properties that we extracted from Schedule E are in fact the same as the subject property address. If it's not, we'll default to not listed on Schedule E. But if one of the rental properties is in fact the subject property, you can select which rental property here from the dropdown. Similarly, for the primary residence, Ocrolus will do a data comparison between the Encompass 1003 field values and the Schedule E rental properties to see if any of them are also listed as a primary residence. If in fact it is not, we will populate not listed, but if one of the rental properties is the primary residence, we would select that here. Most likely, you wouldn't see that showing here. We have an input field value for desktop case file, a desktop underwriter or DU case file IDs. This is also pulled in from Encompass, but if you want to manually key in the case file ID, you can do that as well. This would then send reference to the AUS findings to the income calculator so that we can receive relevant conditions that pertain to this specific loan file information that were already recognized in DU. And that way that strengthens the messages that you receive from Fannie Mae about this income calculation. And then finally, there's a drop-down listed for 1 year of ownership or managing experience for these rental properties. Is this borrower somebody who has been performing ownership or rental services for more than a year long? Typically, this would be defaulted to yes, but lenders can change it if need be. Now, for the rest of these field values, again, we do try to pre-populate when applicable, but if there are fields that you do require manual input on, we have provided, when available, different tooltips to inform the end user what these fields mean, why is this required for Fannie Mae Income Calculator, and guidance on how to pre-fill these data fields. So for example, in this dropdown, we can see the type of residency for this particular property, the type of property this is, single family residence versus multifamily, et cetera. We have whether or not this is an investment property or not. We also have details around other property type rental income. And again, all these tooltips are provided to just guide the human through how to properly answer the field values and put in the manual data entry needed. Now, if you want to change any of these field values, for example, if I wanted to change the rental property housing expense, I can adjust that here and then resubmit my calculation to Fannie. So once you're finished filling out all of these details, you hit submit. We will run the calculation against Fannie's APIs, and then you will receive an updated income value that is recommended by Ocrolus for rep and warranty purposes. You can see here at the bottom the property details. So if there were multiple properties, you would see an accordion for every single unique property that Ocrolus identified. And you can see the extraction details that were used and sent over to Fannie Mae. Now you can see here that all of these field values are locked down. That is purposeful. We do not want to adjust any of the input values that were sent over to Fannie Mae because that would influence the rep and warranty coverage that is provided by the agency. But in the rare case that a customer chooses to deviate away from Fannie Mae's rental income calculation or away from the rep and warranted value, you can select a manual calculation radio button here on the right-hand side. So when I click on this, it is going to warn me that any changes that I make to the calculation, to the input fields, any changes away from the Fannie Mae recommended income calculation will will negate the rep and warranty that was provided by Fannie Mae. So this is just a pop-up warning to anybody who's making this adjustment, but then of course you can choose to override that default value. Now, once I've chosen to do that, I can see that all of these field values become editable. So if I wanted to make adjustments here on this screen to any of the input values, perhaps I had additional information that Schedule E and Schedule 1 did not, I can make those adjustments here. I can choose to include or exclude certain years, just the same as our self-employed income calculation provides. And then I can make that adjustment and choose this rental income as needed. But again, you can always choose to go back to the income calculation provided by Fannie Mae. Now, in order for Encompass or Desktop Underwriter to know that income calculations were ran by Fannie Mae on this loan file, you have a couple of options. The first is an export feature up here at the top where you can download an income data zip file. Now, that zip file is going to contain a few different downloads and exports that you can review. The first is going to be a copy of the income calculation provided by Fannie Mae. And that income calculation can then be printed to your system of record, whether that's Encompass or any of the other LOSs that are popular in the market. And so what that would look like, and I'll try to share a different screen here, is this here. So you can see obviously the income calculation findings. It will provide you the rental example, the income calculator ID, the qualifying rental income, and then all of the finding details, including all of the tax return data that Ocrolus provided from an extraction service, as well as all of the messages, including risk eligibility, data integrity, verifications, conditions, etc., that I showed previously that are downloadable in the UI. A different PDF that we would also supply is a proprietary calculation that Ocrolus generates that can also be printed to your system of record. You can download that directly through the pop-up window from Encompass in additional services, and that would download directly into your e-folder, into a document bucket that you can configure at the services level. So if you're an admin, you can essentially tell Ocrolus where you would like to download that copy of the PDF into your system. Now, the income calculator ID is something that could also be plugged in via Desktop Underwriter on the web. Currently, Encompass does not provide a field for Ocrolus to export the income calculator ID to DU. And so it's not able to run the income calculator in DU through Encompass, but you can plug it in on Desktop Underwriter. Either way, as long as you supply a copy of the finding summary that I just showed on my screen to the investor once you ship this off, Fannie Mae will then be able to recognize that this income value was provided by Fannie, it was rep and warranted, and then you will have that coverage on the back end. So make sure to print out a copy of the PDF and the zip file summary that I just showed, and then that can obviously be uploaded into your stacking templates when you're sharing it with Fannie later on. I'll quickly cover that this is also supported for self-employed. I know we've mentioned this in the past. We've done product pulses in the past to cover our integration with self-employment. It operates very similarly. We would take all of the extraction values from the tax forms and send it over to Fannie. There are a couple of input fields that we can provide here, and then we will receive an income value with the rep and warranty details, as well as all of the messages provided by Fannie Mae. We supply a similar findings summary report that is accessible and downloadable from our website as well, that you can download into your system of record. And then ultimately, if you are integrated with the LOS, you can then import this value through an import button directly into your VOE screen in Encompass. And so that covers most of the features and functionality of our direct integration with Fannie for both rental and self-employed. But I do see we have a handful of questions here, so I'm happy to answer those with the time remaining.
Awesome. Thank you, Becca. Yes, the first question we have, will Ocrolus read a lease agreement?
Not today in the Fannie Mae income calculation specifically. Now, we are working on supporting lease agreement income calculations for our proprietary income calculations. And so when we create income for rental properties, we currently support Schedule E. We do support some light extraction from lease agreements as well. We're constantly trying to evolve the offering that Ocrolus has for income. And so trying to expand into different awards letters, lease agreements, any other income type that isn't necessarily a tax form, pay stub, WVOE, etc. And so while Fannie Mae does not support the lease agreement extraction for their income calculator, we do also have our own calculations that lenders can play around with. Now, I will mention, obviously, one of the value propositions for our integration with Fannie Mae is the rep and warranty coverage that Fannie Mae supplies. We do supply rep and warranty coverage ourselves through a third-party insurance provider. And so, even though you're not necessarily having the benefit from the Fannie Mae income calculator around things like lease agreements, whatever we support ourselves is rep and warranted as well through a third party insurance provider. So, I should mention that.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad you were able to mention that as well.
Mhm.
Next question. Many times the HOA dues for a property is listed on a statement at the end of the return. Is
Mhm.
Ocrolus able to read and pull this information automatically into the calculator?
We do support the reading of additional federal supporting statements for both self-employment as well as rental. And so if and when we are able to see that tax return additional statement on the end of the tax return, we can pull that and we can automate that and we can send it over. We do have details on our doc site as well as all of our documentation that explains all of the documents and all of the field values that we are leveraging in these calculations. So we can give anyone here on the call information about exactly what fields the Fannie Mae income calculator is leveraging for their rep and warranty value. But anyone who is familiar with the online income calculator, it's pretty much all of the same fields that currently a lender would manually key into the online calculator. Just instead, Ocrolus is obviously pulling that data field from the tax returns and filling it in automatically.
Excellent. Does the recognition of subject property or primary residence impact the rental income amount that is imported into Encompass?
It does not affect the amount itself. Now, obviously, it does inform some other details around the calculation and some of the messages that are provided. It is very different, obviously, when you're performing calculations on rental for a subject property versus and a primary residence as well. It would be, it's very rare where you have a primary residence where you're doing rental income as well. So it shouldn't affect the number itself since that's mostly off of the actual data from the tax returns, but it does inform some of the alerts, messages, and other observations that would be provided by Fannie and by Ocrolus as well.
It's a great point. If you have any other questions, please submit them. We have a couple more minutes. Here's the next one. I know you covered this in the demo, but what happens if new rental income documents are uploaded after the Fannie Mae income calculation runs?
Great question. So anytime Ocrolus receives new income documents, whether that's ingested directly from the LOS or if it's uploaded via API or via dashboard, we do regenerate our income service. That would include both a regeneration of the proprietary calculations that we run ourselves, and it would include a rerun of our call to Fannie Mae. And so if we receive documentation that is trailing from the initial set that we used to send to Fannie the first time, we would then send that new updated documentation over to Fannie to retrieve another income calculation. Now, if you want to obviously see what was performed in the past, we do always have access to an audit trail in the dashboard experience. So if you want to see what calculations were ran before, when the system generated income calculations, when new documents were received and sent over to Fannie, you can always access the activity log to see that history. And then, of course, you also have historical references in the form of previous PDFs downloaded from the dashboard to see previous findings history.
Excellent. How can we start using the integration today?
So anybody who is a Ocrolus customer today can send over a request over to your customer support or your account management team, and we can enable this on your environment. For those that were already enabled and had executed an agreement with Fannie for the self-employed income calculation, we did enable it yesterday on your environment. So you should be able to see access to this if you are a customer and you had already executed the Fannie agreement. If you did not have the self-employment or rental enabled today, then it's really just contacting your account manager. We can help you get that agreement executed with Fannie for the service provider integration, and then we can enable it on your account as soon as that is executed.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Becca, for walking us through the integration today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to reach out, and we'll see you at our next Product Pulse.